Living in fear. Weird behaviors of people abused by narcissists.
Narcissists are pathetic emotional vampires who feed off controlling and manipulating their victims. Their pathological self-obsession drives them to commit all kinds of abuse, infecting their targets with lingering side effects long after escaping these leeches. This video explores the 9 dysfunctional behaviors and fears that continue haunting survivors of relationships with these evil parasites. To learn more about how the identity is distorted of survivors, watch the video. Identity distortions, weird behaviors of people abused by narcissists. And to understand the relationship struggles faced by survivors, see the video. Relationship struggles, weird behaviors of people abused by narcissists. Links to both videos are in the description below. Now, let's explore why survivors end up living in fear long after narcissistic abuse.
Hypervigilance as a behavior of people abused by narcissists.
Hypervigilance is a common after-effect of narcissistic abuse. Survivors often exist in a heightened state of constant alertness, anxiously anticipating threats or danger, even in seemingly benign situations. This habitual state of tension is a direct result of the conditioning employed by their narcissistic abusers. The narcissist keeps their victim constantly on edge with ambient abuse, unpredictable rages, sly put-downs, and threats looming just below the surface. The victim adapts by becoming hyper-aware and vigilant, always braced for the next attack. Their nervous system gets stuck in permanent overdrive. After enduring months or years of this treatment, the victim's brain becomes wired for hypervigilance, even after leaving the abusive relationship. Without the narcissist present, this state of constant anxiety provides a sense of control and allows the survivor to feel prepared against potential threats. However, it often spills over into all areas of life. A woman was in a relationship with a narcissistic monster for 5 years. This soul-sucking parasite would often yell at her for minor mistakes or make snide comments putting her down in front of others. Now, even months after leaving this emotional vampire, she finds herself constantly scanning her surroundings. She feels a spike of anxiety in public places, bracing herself for criticism or public embarrassment, even when she is alone. She struggles to calm her vigilant mind. A man dealt with unpredictable rage and verbal attacks from his narcissistic banshee of a wife during their 15-year marriage. Today, he startles easily when someone makes a sudden movement or noise. His heart begins to race when the phone rings, immediately assuming it is the harpy calling to berate him again. He is always on guard, anticipating the emotional warfare that defined his married life. To overcome hypervigilance, the survivor must make a conscious effort to recognize when they are slipping into a state of tension without legitimate threat. Techniques like mindfulness, meditation, and cognitive behavioral therapy can help them identify physical cues and modify their threat responses. As their nervous system returns to baseline functioning, hypervigilance will diminish. Setting clear boundaries and limiting contact with the narcissist also aids recovery. The brain can be retrained to interpret the absence of ambient abuse as safety.
Perfectionism as a behavior of people abused by narcissists.
Perfectionism is another common coping mechanism that develops from narcissistic abuse. The unattainable standards imposed on them by narcissistic tormentors can drive victims towards an obsessive pursuit of flawlessness. The narcissist projects their own insecurities onto the victim, criticizing and punishing them for any minor shortcoming. The victim learns that falling short of perfection risks humiliation, rage, or abandonment. They become conditioned to believe only absolute perfection can earn love and acceptance. Seeking flawlessness in all aspects of life becomes an attempt to regain a sense of control and avoid further criticism or abuse that may trigger painful memories. Their perfectionism stems from a fearful scarcity mindset. A woman was raised by a narcissistic monster of a mother who constantly berated her looks and abilities. As an adult, she spends hours getting ready each morning, agonizing over her appearance. At work, she repeatedly double-checks documents, terrified of making the tiniest mistake. She has panic attacks when plans go awry. Her perfectionism stems from a childhood spent striving hopelessly to avoid her hag of a mother's criticism. A man was married to a narcissistic beast of a husband who flew into rages whenever he failed to meet his expectations of an ideal partner and father. Today, he strives to be the perfect dad, running himself ragged, trying to attend every school event and game. He berates himself for even the smallest parenting misstep. His unrelenting perfectionism is driven by a fear of failing his children the way his jerk of a husband told him he did. To overcome perfectionism, the survivor must challenge the inner critic driving their impossible standards. They can practice self-compassion, ask themselves what they would say to a friend in a similar situation, and compare themselves less to others. Replacing perfectionism with flexibility and balance is key. They must retrain their mindset to value progress over perfection.
Fear of abandonment as a behavior of people abused by narcissists.
The emotional instability and rejection survivors endured from narcissists often leaves them grappling with an intense, irrational fear of abandonment. This makes it challenging to form healthy connections and trust others. The narcissist's intermittent reinforcement, withdrawing affection unexpectedly to keep control, instills a sense of perpetual insecurity in the victim. They become conditioned to believe true closeness will inevitably lead to abandonment. This fear of abandonment continues haunting survivors after leaving the narcissist. They may struggle to see new relationships as reliable or trust expressions of commitment or love. The wounds of betrayal run deep. A woman dated a narcissistic snake for 2 years. This parasite would give her the silent treatment for days whenever she displeased him. He would break up with her frequently, only to later return and promise he changed. She developed an extreme fear of abandonment. Today she grows clingy in relationships, needing constant reassurance. She panics if her partner does not reply to texts immediately. Her insecurities are rooted in the lizard's manipulation. A man grew up with a narcissistic ogre of a father who withheld affection. As an adult, he struggles to believe anyone could genuinely care for him. He isolates himself, rejecting offers from friends to socialize. He also rejects romantic partners before they get too close. While deeply lonely, his fear of abandonment keeps intimacy at bay. To overcome fear of abandonment, survivors must challenge their catastrophic thinking and sense of perpetual instability. They can benefit from techniques like thought records to reality test their abandonment fears. Opening up to emotionally available friends helps build trust. They must take small risks, allowing themselves to rely on the commitment of healthy partners. With time, consistency can overcome fear.
People-pleasing as a behavior of people abused by narcissists.
In a bid to avoid conflict and gain desperately needed approval, victims of narcissists become adept at reading the needs of those around them. They morph into whatever version of themselves they believe others want. The narcissist systematically erodes the victim's sense of self. People-pleasing becomes the only clear path to safe acceptance. Outside the abuse, it continues as a maladaptive coping mechanism, a reflexive survival instinct. This habitual people-pleasing can lead to a loss of identity, poor personal boundaries, buried resentment, and a crippling need for external validation. The victim forfeits their own needs and emotions constantly. A woman was raised by narcissistic gargoyles who ignored her own needs. Today she struggles to say no, immediately acquiescing to requests from friends and partners. She downplays her own preferences and opinions, afraid even minor disagreements could damage her relationships. Her people-pleasing stems from a childhood devoid of unconditional love. A woman was married to a narcissistic beast who berated her political views. After their divorce, she finds herself echoing the opinions of acquaintances, carefully mirroring their stances. She frequently donates to causes despite having no interest, fearing judgment if she doesn't. Her people-pleasing reflects the loss of her ability to develop her own strong convictions. To break this habit, the survivor must learn to reconnect with their own desires and boundaries. They can practice self-affirmations, keep a journal to clarify their values, and build friendships with those who accept their authentic self. Setting limits and allowing others to be disappointed takes courage, but can reclaim their identity.
Self-isolation as a behavior of people abused by narcissists.
Many survivors withdraw from social interactions, preferring solitude over the anxiety of vulnerability and potential manipulation in new relationships. Their trust is broken. The narcissist undermines the victim's self-worth and plants seeds of doubt about others' motives. The victim internalizes a belief that people are selfish and untrustworthy. Isolation feels safer than risking unknown new relationships. The survivor may also isolate to avoid former mutual friends they believe will side with the narcissist. Their support system feels fragile. A woman ended an abusive relationship with a narcissistic demon who slowly isolated her from friends and family. Today, though, free of her ex, she still isolates herself, often declining social invitations and avoiding getting close to anyone. She fills her non-work hours with solitary hobbies, fearful of repeated manipulation if she lets anyone in. A man grew up under the thumb of narcissistic ghouls who forbid friendships. As an adult, he gravitates towards solitary activities, struggling to relate to coworkers beyond the basic niceties. He rebuffs attempts by neighbors and colleagues to befriend him. His self-isolation reflects a lifetime of social apprehension drilled into him. To overcome self-isolation, the survivor must challenge fearful assumptions about others' motives and give new people a chance. Starting small with low-risk social interactions helps rebuild trust. Joining a support group can provide community with others who understand their experiences. Counseling also helps identify and modify self-sabotaging thoughts, driving isolation.
Emotional numbness as a behavior of people abused by narcissists.
To cope with overwhelming emotions, survivors of narcissistic abuse may shut down and numb their feelings as a protective mechanism. This lack of emotional responsiveness serves as a shield. The narcissist's hostility and lack of empathy in response to vulnerable emotions causes the victim to internalize that emotions are dangerous things to be suppressed. They bury their feelings as an act of self-preservation. This blunting of emotions persists even after the narcissist is gone. While numbing provides comfort by avoiding painful feelings, it can also lead to detachment, depression, and an inability to experience joy or intimacy. After years of being told by her narcissistic, volatile boyfriend to stop being so sensitive, a woman began suppressing her reactions to upsetting situations. She maintained a calm exterior even after her boyfriend confessed infidelity. Today, she still struggles to express emotion, hiding her grief when a parent passed away. She fears appearing too sensitive. Growing up, a man never knew how his narcissistic beast of a father might react to displays of emotion, so he learned to hide any vulnerability. As an adult, he rarely emotes during major life events, including his wedding day and birth of his kids. His emotional numbness feels safer than risking the volatile responses he endured in childhood. To overcome numbing, the survivor must slowly identify, process, and release buried emotions with the help of a therapist. Opening up to trusted friends and joining a support group provides community for this journey. Learning to tolerate and regulate emotions takes time and courage, but can restore lost vibrancy and connections.
Chronic self-doubt as a behavior of people abused by narcissists.
Years of manipulation, gaslighting, and criticism can destroy a survivor's self-esteem, leading to endless self-doubt and an inability to trust their own judgment. This causes them to constantly second-guess their decisions. The narcissist systematically undermines the victim's confidence in their own thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. The abuser becomes the authority while the victim's inner guidance system breaks down. Even after leaving the narcissist, this chronic self-doubt often haunts the survivor, causing indecisiveness and a tendency to defer to others' opinions. Their internal compass remains damaged. A woman was routinely told by her narcissistic monster of an ex-husband that all their marital problems were her fault. She internalized this message. Today, her self-esteem is shattered. She agonizes daily over minor decisions, always questioning herself. His gaslighting left her in a perpetual fog of self-doubt. After enduring years of a narcissistic succubus of a girlfriend rewriting history, a man began relying on her version of events rather than his own recollections. To this day, he struggles to trust his perceptions or assert his side confidently during disagreements. Her gaslighting left him forever uncertain of his own mind. Regaining trust in their inner guidance is a process for survivors. Seeking validation from empathetic friends, asserting boundaries with the narcissist, and learning the skill of reality testing helps restore faith in their point of view. Their inner wisdom emerges once more.
Catastrophizing as a behavior of people abused by narcissists.
Survivors of narcissists may have a tendency towards catastrophizing, automatically jumping to worst-case scenarios when faced with challenges, imagining terrifying hypothetical outcomes. This mindset was conditioned by the manipulation tactics of their abuser. The narcissist uses fear-inducing tactics to control the victim, portraying benign situations as fraught with danger. The victim internalizes this worldview that catastrophe lurks around every corner. Even after leaving the relationship, survivors may still operate from this framework, immediately envisioning disastrous conclusions when faced with difficulties. Their inner alarmist was installed through conditioning. Whenever a woman made minor mistakes growing up, her narcissistic ogre of a father exploded in tirades about how she was going to end up homeless and alone. Now, as a young adult, she immediately assumes any setback from a bad grade to a workplace rejection means her life is ruined and she will end up without a job or in jail. She catastrophizes daily. A man's narcissistic gorgon of a mother instilled in him a belief the world was dangerous and others couldn't be trusted. Today, he panics that missing a call or email means he will lose his job, or that a minor spat with his partner signals the end of their relationship. His mind takes benign occurrences and catastrophizes them into doomsday scenarios. To counter catastrophizing, survivors can challenge their fearful assumptions and exaggerations using thought records to generate more realistic outcomes. Developing a problem-solving approach focused on taking constructive actions instead of panicking also helps circumvent paralyzing worst-case fantasies. Approval seeking is a behavior of people abused by narcissists. The need for validation and external approval is common among survivors of narcissists, especially from authority figures. They yearn to make up for the lack of unconditional love they experienced growing up. The narcissistic parent only rewarded performance, looks, or status, never intrinsic worth. Love felt conditional and unreliable, dependent on winning approval. As adults, survivors may continue seeking validation obsessively, driven by an unconscious desperation to earn the love denied them as children. They expect the same conditionality from bosses, mentors, and partners. A man was raised by a self-absorbed narcissistic harpy of a mother who only gave him attention when he impressed her. As an adult, he constantly seeks validation from bosses and mentors, becoming distressed if they seem disappointed. He chooses hobbies and interests designed to garner praise. His mentality remains fixed in winning his wish of a mother's approval. A woman's narcissistic ghouls of parents made their love contingent upon academic and athletic success. Today, she is an overachiever, relentlessly seeking trophies, awards, and accolades in all pursuits, no matter how exhausted she feels. She pushes her children to excel in the same manner, seeking to fulfill vicariously the approval denied to her by her narcissistic demons. She drives her children relentlessly, unable to shake the mindset ingrained by her tormentors. To break free, survivors must become aware of their emotional hunger and need for external validation. Inner child work to provide missing unconditional love can be helpful. Establishing their sense of identity and worth outside of achievements allows approval seeking to fall away. The road to healing from a narcissist's toxic mind games is an uphill battle. But with determination and the right support, victims can break the spell of these blood-sucking fiends. They can regain their self-worth, boundaries, and inner peace after freeing themselves from these manipulative demons. The possibilities for overcoming a narcissist's twisted conditioning are real. Survivors can cut ties with these ghouls and take their lives back. I hope you found some support and validation in the shared experiences here and gained insight into recovering from lingering fears after narcissistic abuse. Please comment with your story to help others heal. If you still struggle with difficult behaviors that need to be addressed, don't hesitate to reach out for coaching. I want to continue this conversation to bring narcissistic abuse out of the shadows. Your financial contributions through donations or patronage make it possible for me to create empowering resources to spread awareness and amplify survivor stories. Don't forget to subscribe and press thanks if these videos have eased your isolation and pain. Your generosity allows me to be here together so we can help victims rediscover their wings after narcissistic abuse clipped them for too long. If you believe you need to urgently speak with a counselor to get started on recovering from narcissistic conditioning, you can send me a message on WhatsApp, and I will schedule an initial session within 24 hours. I believe in you and this community's resilience. Together we can heal and thrive again after narcissistic betrayal.